Hi, it's Chris Gio from Merchant Method, and welcome to Merchant Method Trend Reports. Today we're talking about style, sales, and selling. Style, selling, and sales. If you're new to trend reports, trend reporting and trend reports are the practice of gathering data and identifying patterns or trends. Merchant Method Trend Reports combined industry trends with experience-based training so you can start to understand and feel empowered to take action on what's happening in the industry and apply them to your business. Really, my goal and hopefully your goal is to unlock that next level of profit and do it with more ease. So I'm really excited to have you. Feel free, if you're joining live, to ask questions. Post them in the comments and I'll answer them at the end of the report. And better yet, sign up for Trend Report bonuses. You can do that by clicking signing up on the Facebook page and ask me that question right there in the sign up sheet. I'm excited to communicate with you and answer your question to the best that I can, because chances are if you have that question, other people do as well. So for the February Trend Report series, it's all themed around how to use your business size as an independent retailer, maker, maybe you're a hand maker or a small batch manufacturer, maybe you are a brick and mortar business owner, how to use your size to your advantage. It really is in response to the flood of brick and mortar retail closures that were announced in February and that will be continued to be announced throughout the year. And last week, we talked through business agility, specifically identifying the behaviors that online retailers and tech retailers utilize and use and employ to stay really competitive and to stay at the forefront of the industry. And that report really shaped those behaviors in a way that you can apply them to your business right now. This week's trend report, Style, Selling, and Sales, is really meant to take the academic understanding of the fundamental retail and move you into action. So we're going to put on our student hat, our professor hat, and we're going to study the product lifecycle. We're going to study the sales channels, and we'll talk a little bit about the customer adoption curve in there, and then we're also going to talk about how to niche in a traditional product category. And then next week I want you to join me because we're going to use business agility. We're going to use how you know how to action on retail fundamentals and apply that to part 3, which is winning big and feeling good about walking away, knowing when to walk away. The goal of these trend reports are really to prime you in this education process and really help you move from an academic understanding, as I said earlier, to one of acting. I believe that when you ask better questions, you're going to get better answers and make more informed decisions. I feel like confidence is the biggest part of the battle. Not every choice we're going to make is going to be right or lead to success, whatever that may be, but to be able to make more informed choices based on that much more knowledge and moving away from operating purely on gut or operating purely on guesses is such a big step in moving to a place of operating more consistently, operating with a lot of confidence, sharing that confidence with your team, and unlocking more profit. So before we dive in, I definitely want to share a quick story about an experience I had recently. And I'm sharing it because it's related to what we're talking about. So I'm in a mastermind group and I'm in the hot seat every 2 or 3 weeks. And so if you're not familiar with a mastermind group, it's a group of people that get together with a common goal, which is to develop professional skills or personal skills and to achieve whatever success means for the individual in that group or whatever success means in the group. So there's peer accountability, right? People holding your feet a little bit to the fire. There's peer support. There could be some training and education. And one of the questions I got asked when I was on the hot seat, and the hot seat is exactly what it sounds like, the spotlight's on you and it's time for you to talk. So one of the questions I got asked is what I love doing with clients. And one of the things I really, really love doing is called competitive shopping. And if you're not familiar with competitive shopping, it's really going out and physically being present in another person's business, specifically a competitor's business, to really understand different things about their products, to really understand different ways that customers experience their service as a way to gauge your own products and services. I've been doing it since the early 2000s, and I see Allison is on. I know Allison has done it as well too when we worked together at Gap. It's a really important practice, and these trend reports are giving you the skill set so that you can do it and feel like you're not lurking, and feel like you're doing it with purpose and feel good about it, and not approach it from a place of feeling like somehow your business is lacking, or feeling inferior or feeling superior. It really is about just studying what's happening in the marketplace. And I'm super excited because I am working on the second edition of a workbook around competitive shopping, and it's almost done. It's 21 pages of experience-based training, and it's coming out in the spring. So if you're listening to these trend reports, it's going to elevate and really turbocharge what you put into your competitive shopping, and then therefore what you get out of it. So stay tuned. I'm excited. All right, so now we're going to review some basics, and I call it fun with fundamentals. If you watch The Big Bang Theory, Fun with Flags, it's fun with fundamentals with Chris Guilleau. And we are going to be reviewing some things that we don't often think about, but because the complexity of retail is more than any single person has the time to study, it's good to review them and to really understand what is happening out there and how much of it is relevant to me. What do I want to respond to, and what do I not need to worry about? That's why we're reviewing it. So we're going to start with looking at style, specifically the life cycle of a product. And this graph is from the Principles of Marketing. It is in chapter 9, slide 24. It was published, I believe, in 2004, but I'm going to include a link to it in the show notes that are going to be on merchantmethod.com/trend report, so that you can see a review of this slide specifically. So I'm going to talk about it and then I'm going to remove it, but I want you to see it if you're not familiar with it. So what you'll see in here along the x-axis is time. And so this, could be month 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then on the y-axis is your revenue and your profit. We know that we fall out of love with items. If you have a non-commodity item, even if you have a commodity item that expires, we know that there is a life cycle to things. Typically, if your business is seasonal, you are all too familiar with this life cycle of a product. So we know that there's an introduction phase where you're putting it out on the floor, and then you have like your shoppers in here that are really excited to see new product, and they're willing to spend without a lot of validation from other people. Typically, the enthusiasm in your store might come from your team and from your sales associates. It could come from your marketing or from the customer themselves. As we move into growth phase, there's more knowledge about the product on the sales floor. Typically, associates know how to pair it with other things well. They'll have use feedback about how well it is used over time. If it's an apparel item, how to match it with other things. They'll understand complementary items and help bolster the confidence of the buyer. That's what's happening in growth phase. In maturity phase, that item has a lot of social proof. It can sell itself. Customers have seen it around. They're super excited, and that's like the sweet spot of the profit and the revenue in your business. And then it starts to decline because the item is seasonal. It gets a little old, either in that it's no longer seasonally relevant, or it was sold so well you don't have enough to motivate someone to buy. So you're either running out of sizes or colors, you're just running out of choices in general, and that particular item starts to fall off. You're going to see the profit curve is in red, and it's not exactly mirrored to the sales curve, because we run inventory-based businesses and it costs money to buy inventory. So you're investing up front with a payout in the end. And the profit really starts to peak during growth and maturity, and then it also declines as revenue declines. It could be at a different rate, but because it's less desirable, you hopefully are motivated to sell through it by way of markdown, promotional activity, etc. So this is the life cycle of an item. I'm sure you're familiar with it, but the reason why we're looking at that is so that we can use my one example for the entire trend report, and that is spring dresses, women's spring dresses, and a collection of spring dresses. So we're in February and spring dresses are coming to market right now. The kind of customer that might buy a dress right now, like in Seattle, it just snowed and the city stopped for a day and a little bit this morning, but there's weather throughout most of the country that isn't traditionally warm all year long. So spring dresses might not seem appropriate if you're in the Midwest and there's a lot of snow. But the person who might buy it's an early shopper. Maybe the customer is buying for a vacation, like a winter honeymoon, or a very specific occasion, and they're looking for the newest dress and they want a lot of choice. Maybe they're style conscious and not necessarily budget conscious, and they don't need a lot of support to style and to select. Then we move into March, and sales associates might have great ways to style it and say things to customers like, I've seen it on this body type and that body type and it looks amazing. You might want to pair it with this or try that. They're starting to give some style tips, and it's almost as if it's that really friendly interaction between sales associate and customer. Then we get into April, and that's the peak of spring dress selling, right? That's when most people are buying dresses. There are a lot of dress choices. A lot of styling is out there already, either by way of magazines or on the screen, or on mannequins and body forms. Maybe the customer has seen it on their friend. And so it's just, they're almost selling themselves. Customers are picking out multiple dresses and bringing them into the fitting room. But by the time we come to May, spring dresses, the color or pattern might not be super relevant. In the middle of summer, maybe the dress is too heavyweight in fabric, or a sleeve, like a ballerina sleeve, might be too much coverage. And when you're getting in summer dresses in lighter weight, in spaghetti straps, those spring dresses aren't going to be as relevant. You might be selling out of sizes, selling out of the best colors, and so it's the end of the life cycle for the spring dresses, and the beginning of the life cycle for summer dresses. So that's what that actually looks like in action. I know you're really familiar with it. So the thing to know about the life cycle of an item, and we'll talk about it when we get to customer hierarchy and how customers actually make their purchases, is a dress can experience, like a single spring dress can experience this life cycle, and it can experience full price selling and markdown selling. That same dress can have full price selling depending on what channel you're buying it in. So we're gonna be talking about that, but keep your mind open to, from a style perspective and the lifestyle of a product, just because you and I don't find it stylish anymore and it's not on trend anymore, it doesn't mean that there is not an opportunity for very profitable full price business in that item. All right, so now let's look at selling. And I want to start to dissect different sales channels through which a dress shopper might buy. And within each sales channel, there's a lot of different models. And this is where there's been the most change in the way that we shop, even in the way that I shopped 10 or 15 years ago. Definitely in the way that I entered the retail industry, it's very, very different. So there's full price, there's off price, and the newer one is shared use. But then there's also retailing that's a little bit of service and product that can loosely be called personal styling. So the full price customer wants something very, very current. Maybe they want to be the first one in that dress. They are not necessarily price sensitive, and they don't want to work too hard to find their dress, so they want a lot of choice that's organized and easy to find. So here are a few examples of full price retail business models within that sales channel. So there are full line stores, and I talked about full line stores a few weeks ago, and they're basically stores that carry everything. So department stores are full line stores. A lot of big box stores are full line stores. An example here would be Barney's. There are specialty retail stores, so stores that carry a specific group or a subset of groups. So typically there are women's apparel stores or shoe store specific stores. They could be national retailers, it could be capital R retailers, but they're specialty. So someone might shop for a dress at Dress Barn. You know, you're going in there and you're going to find dresses. Then there's the independent boutique that could specialize. And so there's one in Seattle called Pretty Parlor, and they specialize in vintage and vintage inspired dresses. If I need a dress and I'm thinking about a dress, it's one of the first places that comes to mind. And then, of course, you know that there's online only dress shops. Like I think of ModCloth, even though they carry a variety of women's products, they definitely have a broad assortment and a deep assortment of dresses. Let's talk about the off-price sales channel. And so you'll typically think of it as like markdown sales channel. So not full retail is what I mean by off-price. So typically the customer who's shopping here is price conscious. They know that whatever they find will look great, but they may or may not necessarily be concerned about being the most forward in style or being the most on trend. They're looking for something solid, and the filters of price and style vie in their hierarchy of needs, of shopping needs. So I like to think about rack or outlet counterparts to full-line stores. An example of this would be Saks Fifth Avenue, Nordstrom Rack, BR Factory Store. So there's the full price component, and then there's the off-price component of the same brand. Hi! These stores, these rack stores or outlet stores, don't only carry marked down items or jobbed items or liquidated items from their full price counterparts. They also supplement with their own assortment, but everything within that store typically is part of this off-price strategy. Then you have straight up discount stores, and I think of TJ Maxx and Ross. They're buying liquidated inventory from a lot of different retailers. They're buying jobbed inventory. And then I think of exclusively online sites like Zulily that really romance items that are at the end of their life. There's so many more in this off-price as well, but those are a few examples. So then a third channel yet is still shared use or second use. I call shared use or second use. So this customer is price conscious still, but they might be a little bit more concerned about style, and they might be more concerned about the environment because they're purchasing items that they won't have forever, or that they didn't originally own. So I like to think of a rental here. And so this is a little bit of subscription and product, specifically Rent the Runway. I went to a black tie event a few weeks ago, and one of the women there was wearing a black tie dress that she rented from Rent the Runway. And she uses that service for formal dresses several times a year. You can also think of this, though we don't think of eBay often, eBay as an auction site for second use apparel. There's a lot in there, but those are a few examples. And then I also want to mention personal styling, because there's a lot of product purchasing that happens. It's spring dress shopping that happens by way of personal styling. So there's individual stylists. You find them for their services, work directly with them, and they're purchasing based on your need. But then there's also this other level of styling and selling where styling services are offered by the retailers. So there are a few I can think of. Are Nordstrom's really known for their personal styling. There's also a local women's boutique called Lika Love here in Seattle. They do a lot of personal styling as well, and product is a component of that. The services are free, but they're meant to lend expertise and trend and help identify items for you. Then there's also this online component of styling and service through a service, let's say, like Stitch Fix. You enter a lot of information about your style, your size, what you like, what you don't like. You pay a fee, and then a stylist will send you a collection of items once a month, and you get to try them and decide what you want to keep and get charged for, and then what you want to send home. I used to be this kind of stylist for J. Crew, where I worked with a couple of clients, and I would messenger them things, and they would keep what they wanted, and I would charge them for what they kept, and then they would send back what they didn't. So these are just a few types of sales channels, right? And there are a lot of stores doing a lot of wonderful things, but depending on what sales channel through which you drive most of your volume, or the sales channel through which you really, really want to get good at bringing your products to market, you might not necessarily have to worry about or feel like you're in direct competition with other retailers just because they are making a lot of amazing news and doing a lot of great things. You may not be swimming in the same lane, and that's okay. You could still both be selling great, beautiful women's spring dresses. Again, in this area of retail, sales channels where the industry is experiencing most of its changes. With the Internet of Things, the way we sell, the way we market, PR, the way we social share our lifestyle is really changing how we get to customers. So it could be that we started as a brick and mortar and then we naturally added an online component, but now we started doing pop-ups and are also selling through Instagram, and those are different sales channels. Typically, retailers of all sizes participate in multi-channel retail, right? In that example, that's a multi-channel retailer, but it's the enterprising, more well-resourced retailers that are participating in omni-channel retail, and that is more than just one pool of inventory. It's the seamless experience of how that inventory is sold, but also the seamless experience that the customer has between screens, like between my iPad and between my cell phone or my computer and me going to the pop-up and me engaging with social media and me going to the store and me trying things on. Omni-channel really is that seamless experience in retail. And, you know, there's points of view out there that believe that there's no longer different sales channels, but that it's now a melting pot because omnichannel is so pervasive and the industry is going through this major change. And that's definitely one way to look at it, that retail is just capital R retail or a new version of capital R retail, and we don't have different sales channels. And I'm not convinced yet. And here's why I'm not convinced yet, but I could be swayed. Is that, number one, companies that started as online retailers with a strong service component, like Warby Parker, they're opening up brick and mortar locations because they know their customers really like the in-store experience and that they are ignoring a whole market of eyeglass wearers that don't want to get frames from the mail, right? So they're opening up brick and mortar locations and they are successful. Another example is, you know, we think about the ease of buying online so we can return online. There is a service called Happy Return. They are physical locations, physical kiosks in malls and in stores where you can bring in your returns because it's inconvenient to go to a place that ships, right? Isn't that interesting when the ease of shopping online is sometimes free shipping and easy returns? This service, this physical service is popping up because it's inconvenient for people. Another example about why I think that we're not in a melting pot of retail is we all know that you could buy groceries online and have them delivered to your door. I've used that service a few times in San Francisco. I haven't used it here, but Amazon is really great at that. There are also hybrid services where you actually go to the physical location, the physical store, and pick it up. So there's a lot of validity of people wanting to be at the physical location. But another reason why I don't think that we're a melting pot of retail is that the environment and access to resources aren't inclusive enough for small businesses to reach that enterprising level that allows small businesses to provide that seamless omni-channel experience. So I'm yet to be convinced, but what's good about these examples that illustrate why we're not one big retail experience is that it shows there's lots of opportunity for the physical, there's lots of opportunity for the in-person, there's lots of opportunity for brick and mortar. I'm so excited about that. All right, so the last thing we're going to look at in Fun with Fundamentals is we're going to look at sales, really specifically how to optimize your sales. So this is really filters, the things that are important to your customer before your customer makes a purchase. And a few trend reports ago, I talked about style versus occasion, right? So it's there's lots of demands on our money. There's lots of demands on your customer's money, and they order, customers are ordering these demands, and they are not mutually exclusive demands. They can shift and move quite quickly. So an example could be when you see an item and you think, that is not worth it. It's so way overpriced. I would never pay that amount. And then you find somehow by looking at it that it's actually on sale. And then that item becomes quickly more desirable, right? Or an item seems really, really cool, but it only has one function and you can't quite justify buying that specific item for one function, but you learn that that pot can now do 2 or 3 things. Oh, it's instantly become more useful, and what was undesirable quickly becomes desirable. That is how your customer shops, and so organizing your customers' filters is really key in optimizing your sales. So where you are or where your products are in this product lifecycle, or where you're swimming in terms of sales channel, you'll need to understand the hierarchy of needs. And there are more than just style and occasion, but I want to explore it in the framework of our example of women's spring dresses. So a customer might shop first by occasion, right? So I recently had to buy a dress. I don't purchase things often, but I recently had to buy a dress for a black tie event. I needed to buy a dress for a black tie event. Very specific. It was going to serve few other occasions. So someone might go to, and in the past I've gone to Bloomingdale's. Someone might have a brand new job or a promotion. They might be interviewing and are looking for very appropriate work attire. So they might go to somewhere like Banana Republic because that's the appropriate work attire. Someone might have an active lifestyle and still need a dress, but they move around a lot and they need a lot of function out of that dress. That's the occasion. They might go to Athleta, right? Spring dresses, each of those stores will sell a spring dress at full price. That could be the first most reason why someone would shop. A customer might shop instead by style first, right? So if the occasion really is the number one, within, buying a black tie dress at Bloomingdale's, they walk in the door, now they're looking at their second filter, which could be style. Either something modern or something a little bit more traditional. On the flip side, a customer could shop by style first, like that's the utmost important. So a customer can have a very modern style and go to a store that has a wide assortment within that modern style. And I ended up buying my black tie dress at a boutique in Portland called Back Talk because I knew they had a modern style and I could probably find something there. They range from everyday wear to formal wear. Someone can have a really casual style and feel like they can buy weekend wear, work wear, and active wear at Target. Casual style. Someone could really have a novelty style and shop at a place like one of my favorite places for novelty is called Hilo Hattie, and it is a Hawaiian-based retail location where everything's made in Hawaii. So someone could have that novelty that runs throughout their style. But beyond occasion and style, we can't underestimate values. A lot of people are putting values first as their primary filter. An example of this could be someone who has a vegan lifestyle. If they have a vegan lifestyle, they're also concerned about what they wear and is what they wear vegan. And that is the number one priority. And one of my former peers is vegan, and she shops at Vaute Couture, Vaught. Oh, Vaute, Vaute Couture. And they have a range of styles on there and a range of price points, but that's where she goes first when she's looking, because it's values first and then maybe it's style. Someone may have the value of handmade, and they're going to a boutique that focuses on handmade dresses. I can think of one in Seattle called Sassafras, where they're handmade, Pacific Northwest, and a dress boutique. So, you know, it's the value first, then the style second, or maybe even the occasion second. Or someone could have the value of second use, where they believe that there's too much stuff and too much consumerism and they need a dress. So they might go to a website like ThredUp, where they can purchase something that someone previously owned that they might in turn sell again. So those are, that's a review of hierarchy of needs. That's a simplified review. There's lots of people that study those things to really fine-tune the assortment and fine-tune the experience. But what we just reviewed were 3 fundamentals of how people buy products. We reviewed style, or specifically the life cycle of a product. I keep flashing this slide, and if you're just joining, I'll provide a link to that academic slide on the show notes at merchantmethod.com/trend reports, and that'll be up on Thursday. We talked about selling, specifically sales channels, and exploring different ways to operate your business within a sales channel of full price, off price, shared use. Shared use is huge. And personal styling. I did not even talk about co-creation, but those are a few channels. And then we talked about sales in terms of optimizing the sales based on hierarchy. And regardless of where you fit on any of these charts or graphs or channels, you can have really great profitable selling and still speak to your niche. And the point of reviewing this from an academic perspective and applying some examples to it is to move our understanding from academics to action, right? Because knowledge is potential. I have a lot of knowledge I haven't put to play yet, specifically with regards to running a service-based business. But once I do, once I apply that knowledge into action, that's where the power comes through. And I want you to do the same as well. So here are your 3 assignments. And this really is to tee you up for next week, when we're going to talk about how to actually analyze competitors and what to do about it. Really winning big, and then when not to care, when to walk away. So with regards to style, I want you to pick just a few items in your assortment, 2 or 3, and just think through and review or study them starting from now. How long does it take to get these items to move through your style curve? So for example, in the spring dress example, a dress that has, black fabric, or the pattern is grounded in black, the pattern has a background of black, that could have a longer life at full price than a dress that is a white dress, or a pattern that's white grounded or a white background might have a shorter life cycle before it is no longer a dress that crosses over from spring to summer. So study that a little bit. The reason why it's great to study it is you'll find that as you start to pay attention to the different elements of a collection or the different elements of your assortment, you're going to be taking action differently. So if I'm finding, for example, that this one dress is significantly more popular than another, I will take different action. I might try and reorder the popular dress. I might try and see if I can get out of future orders of the non-popular dress. There's a lot of things that you can do there. The next thing I want you to do is identify your sales channel, full price, off price, a shared use, or personal styling. And really I want you to study where does most of your revenue come from, but where do most of your units come from? Because you could have a piece of your business that is important to your customer that they buy off price, and that's okay. You can shape that piece of the business however you want, but if we don't study it, we can't make really well-informed decisions about it. So I think of big retailers like Target that buy a lot of holiday decor and a lot of like holiday gift wrapping and packaging and cards, and they sell it up to the holiday and then they sell a lot after the holiday. That's with intention. And then lastly, for sales, study how you currently optimize your sales. Are you optimizing it by occasion first, by style first, by values first? Those are just a few of the kind of needs or values that your customers organize, and think through, is the experience that you control, the floor merchandising, what's in the windows, what you market, what's reflected on your website, what you publish on a social media, what you put on your newsletter, does it really speak and match to how your customers spend their money? So style, selling, and sales. And then join me next week. Next week, again, we're talking about how to actually put this into action and how to look at people that are in your competitive space, and how to differentiate your sales from who's in your competitive space. So thank you so much for joining me. Thanks, Alex, for joining me. I will see you next week. I'm here every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Pacific. I'm Chris Guillo, and thanks for watching Merchant Method Trend Reports. Bye.